I am Neil.
I'm Veronica. We fell in love when we were 16, and here we are talking about what life is all about for us. Thank you for joining us.
This is a Life Is podcast with Neil and Veronica.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Life Is with Neil and Veronica. So today is one of those days, we've had them in the past, where the topic came from Veronica, who shared this idea with me. So I'm going to throw it right over to her to talk about what we are going to talk about in this week's episode.
Hi, everybody. We're so glad that you're joining us again. So thank you so much for choosing to spend time with us, choosing to hang out with us, choosing to listen to what we have to say. So right off the bat, today's episode is Life is Yours. So just soak that in for a second or a minute or for the next 30 minutes when we want to talk to you about how life is yours. And typically, in these episodes, Neil opens it up. I feel like he shares some wisdom. So thanks, Neil, for the space, for being able to intro it and just say, life is yours. Because I don't think we hear that enough. We hear it in different ways. And I think we hear things like, do some self-care, go take a bath, like as if, that's making life mine or whatever that is. And is that even self-care? But, I want you to think about, when was the last time you made a decision that was truly about you or that was for you? And I think something that I've realized that, what I want to encourage my friends and those that I have a relationship with and those, that are in my life and I'm in theirs. And even with you, Neil, like we talk about this a lot, but I'm recognizing lots of different dialogue. And I think the more that you're aware of it. So actually, we were sharing the whole, let's replace I'm sorry with I love you. And I feel like the more that, you realize or you're more cognizant or aware of certain things, it's so great to see how that evolves for us in different ways. So I think it started, I couldn't even tell you when personally, I started thinking, okay, I can start to do something for me and feel good about it instead of guilty about it. And I think that was a huge distinction. Is sometimes there's this dialogue in my mind where I'm like, nope, in terms of not me, can't do anything for me. Nope, can't do that for me. That's going to come last. Got to do everything else first. And I think what I started realizing is how quickly I got depleted, but also the love or the energy that I was not able to pour into all of those things that I tried to prioritize before I would prioritize something for myself was almost counterproductive. So I'm also starting to realize, I think you and I, you're like, are you hungry? Did you eat something yet? Recognizing that some very basic self-care things need to happen. And that can, very greatly impact my mood or how I'm doing something. So I'm okay now to say something and kind of, realize I'm modeling taking care of myself too. If the kids ask me something, it doesn't have to be done right in that second. In fact, it's probably teaching something how to grow their patience spot and, showing them that they can take the time to take care of themselves. And you can say no to something and that's okay, but it's a no, not right now. Or I need a few minutes and that's okay. So, I've gotten a bit better at, or actually, you know what? I'm going to give myself some credit here. I have gotten a lot better. Yay, Neil's clapping for me and like grinning ear to ear about it. But I have gotten, I think, immensely better. Okay, I went from a little bit to greatly to immensely better at saying things like, okay, I or mommy, needs 10 minutes, and like being realistic about it too, not like 1 minute. It needs 10 minutes to like sit here in this chair and drink my tea or whatever it is. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
like that's something that's a bit smaller, but recognizing, a smaller example, I want to say, not discounting like what that means, but something smaller. And so when we say like life is yours, I want to say for myself, I feel like I was wired, again, don't know where this came from, but it was actually never mine for a long time. It's always making decisions for everyone else. I am known as that person that kind of goes with the flow. But often that's just because sometimes those decisions don't matter to me in a sense, in terms of like, one of my friends is like, Veronica, whenever we're trying to get together, like, you're the one. And she always says, like, you're the water Libra. I think I'm a water Libra. I don't really know. But we talk about astrology a lot. And, she's like, you kind of just go with the flow. And I'm like, yeah, because, it doesn't matter to me where or what. Usually it's the who. So if I'm spending time with someone, it can be wherever. I really don't have a strong opinion about that. And I'm getting, again, immensely better at, if I do have an opinion about something, or if something is about my boundaries or whatever that is, I am now pretty quick to say those and to name it. But, last July, I kind of went into an all-in journey for myself in getting to the healthiest me. So you might have heard on another podcast, I was giving an example of actually, I think we were talking about time specifically, but it also is the same example of how I decided, we were talking about significance too, about, the difference between significance and importance. So if you haven't heard of the Life is Significant episode, that's where we were talking about how when you make time for things that are significant and you prioritize that over things that are important, because realistically, so many things are important in your life, it almost feels like you have more time. So I was making time to exercise, and actually, how that impacted the kids. And then I found more time to do things like that. And I really was starting to invest in myself. So thank you, Neil, for saying, investing in yourself and your health and your wealth. But by becoming the healthiest me, and I'm still on that journey, and I think that I will continuously be on that journey. And I hope that, I'm always trying to become the healthiest me possible. That how that impacts, how that kind of, by filling up my cup so much that it's almost spilling over in a positive way, perhaps into other people's cups. Like, that's what it is. By filling up mine, I can actually fill up others.
Yeah. So let's unpack a little bit about that. So there's some things that I want to talk about. And when you say life is yours, it really is a wide casted statement, because you make that statement for whatever you need or want, right? That's the whole point of this, is when you start to focus on you, it will pour over to others, like you just said. But I want to touch on what you were talking about and it has to do with, specifically us and as parents, making the statement of, when maybe they're looking for our attention, or they're looking to do something with us and we're currently busy. So they advice that they put out there that, we've implemented, and that experts, let's say, in the realm of kids and development and parenting. When you say to them, hey, mommy or daddy, whoever it is, I just need 5 minutes. I just need 10 minutes. Okay. So you're going to name how much time you need. You're going to tell them what you're doing. Hey, I just need 5 minutes to talk to my friend. Hey, I just need 5 minutes to wrap this thing up at work. I just need whatever. Okay. And then you're going to let them know, then I'm going to focus all my attention on playing with you, on reading with you, on whatever their request was. So when you do those things, right, you acknowledge that they're looking for you. You tell them that you're just doing something for you and that you will just need this amount of time. And then and finally, once you complete that, you want to give them your undivided attention for that request. It goes a long way to show them that, okay, one, people are allowed to take care of what they're doing and it's okay. But that when it's done, I still get what I need from my significant person. And that goes to show them, right? Because we also talk about how things are caught. Like they pick those things up, right? You could tell them all you want, but until you show them, until things are caught in the moment, that's when the impact for especially young developing minds goes a long way. So I think there is a lot to that you were talking about that can go a long way, and doesn't even have to go into kids and parenting. That can go into your work relationship, right? Hey, yeah, you know what? Thanks for sending me that request. I'm currently working on this. I'm going to get to that here, right? Acknowledgement, telling them when you're going to get to it, and that it is important or significant at a later time. It also works well for friendships. It's a completely great thing to do for any relationship. So we implement it with kids because we find that having the demand of 3 can be overwhelming. So we really have to be aware of how we're reacting or responding, to those requests. So I think there was a lot to that.
I heard the S word.
Oh, you did?
So sorry.
Yeah, well, I misused my words, so I want to make sure because words matter.
Yeah, it's true. And I love that you talked about, you can say, it's not about rejection. Saying no doesn't always necessarily mean rejection. And I think there's a lot of discomfort often, that comes with that feeling of sometimes no or rejection, but it's the and again. So again, I can say something like, I need 10 minutes and you are important to me. So, I think you can still give those messages like, I'm actually telling you this because I care about you. But the reality of the situation is, whatever that might be, I need those 10 minutes. And I think that we need to build that in because, sometimes again, if you're picturing kind of, I guess, that hamster wheel or whatever that might be, sometimes it's going so fast. Okay, legitimately though, can we talk about the hamster wheel for a second? If it's moving too fast, what happens? You lose your step and you start the momentum is happening and you're flip-flopping all over that wheel. So if you, take an extra step without things moving too quickly, I don't know. We're all about visuals, right? And even today was a big learning day for us. And so while we're here to talk to you about life is yours, this is where we will say, stay tuned because there's so many things that we need to unpack from the events of today that happened with our oldest daughter. And what I'm thinking often, and the message that I want to share when I say life is yours is, often we talk about how in conversations, people always wonder, okay, I'm also trying to get better at not always saying always or never, or very, is it finite? Very definitive kind of words. So I'm trying to build this in. So those of you that are listening, you can totally catch me on this. But often, in conversations, people are either looking for validation. And now when it comes to me, so when the question comes to me like, hey, what do you think about XYZ? I will full on say things like, thank you for asking me for my opinion. Here it is. And I'll also even say, but I'm not in your shoes. I don't know those variables. Legitimately, like it's not my life. So, if you're looking for an ear, like legitimately to be a sounding board or to talk things out, like I love those friendships. I love those conversations. Often Neil, I'll be like, Neil, can you come here, please? And like, can we have this conversation? And like, Neil's so receptive and like, you'll sit there, Neil, and listen. And then often I just kind of talk it out and I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing now, So there is like that kind of conversation, but I've realized for myself that I was often that person that was asking everybody else like what I should do about something. And we've shared this message before about, deep down, or maybe not so deep down, it kind of depends where that sits. But we often know the answer, or we often know like what we want to do, and I think it's a natural thing to wonder about different variables or different outcomes. Or again, it is that story where, Neil can definitively choose one path, whereas I'm looking at all the options and kind of the outcomes and what's going to happen or what could possibly happen. But, it's worthwhile to say again, like life is yours ultimately, if it is a decision at hand, if it is like whatever you want to do. Right? Like I said, actually, to our oldest daughter today, I was like, you have one body, and my job as your parent is to help you take care of that as best as you can and to protect you when I can. But again, like it's your body, you feel what you're feeling. So I trust you in whatever that is. And so like, my message to her also was like, life is yours. Like, what do you want to do in this situation? So I feel like you have a thought. So I feel like, yeah, go for it.
I'm also just thinking as you're speaking about that, because we're talking about how we were, going through what we went through today. And like you said, we'll unpack that in future episodes because there were so many different things that came about. But when you also realize that for the person who maybe you're talking with or who you're in a relationship with, right, in our case, with our children, when you realize that they also need to have the mindset of their life is theirs, right? So your life is yours, their life is theirs. It's almost like like accepting that they're making the best decision for them, right? And maybe you gave them advice or maybe you gave them guidance because they asked for it and they went one way or another, and then you're just there to support them, right? And it's just allowing them to know that no matter what, your decision, I'm standing behind you because that's your decision. And, I would want the same thing. And it goes into what you just said about, especially when we're now getting into raising our kids, is trusting their decisions, because we're not going to be around forever, right? Like, and you've talked about this, or so we've talked about this together, and you brought this up to me, is we have to get to a certain point where they need to know that life is yours and we're not always going to be around. So you like trust, again, from us to them, or trust in yourself that when you make a decision for you, that's what you need to go with, right? And yeah, you can seek guidance. Yes, you can seek advice, and that may help you to confirm or to know which direction you want to go in. But ultimately, in the end, life is yours. Trust what you want to do because we trust you when we're talking about our kids.
And I think it's like, for me, it was like, really, like, what does make me happy? What do I want to do? Like, what fills up my cup? And when I started making decisions based on, like, taking time to actually think about, like, whoa, okay. And sometimes there are selfless times for sure where you can make decisions and, you can prioritize someone ahead of your own. It's not an all or nothing. And, there's a big message there too, but, it doesn't mean, okay, when we say life is yours, absolutely infinitively, like, every decision you have to say, okay, it has to be about me first. No, of course not. Things can be fluid, but I think it's such an important message that you can prioritize yourself, and it doesn't mean that you're deprioritizing those around you. In fact, what I've come to feel, and I feel like it's a realization, is that when I started prioritizing myself, it was interesting to see others around me actually telling me, like, you're inspiring me to take time for myself. You're inspiring me to put my health first. You're inspiring me to make these decisions. And I think that that's such an amazing thing and totally an unintended outcome in a sense. But what a beautiful thing that is. That's almost the opposite of what we would think would happen, right? Like, by taking the time to invest in myself, it ultimately makes me a more fulfilled, happier, person. And I think that, interestingly enough, that has made like a positive impact on those around me. And how cool is that? Like, because this whole time, all of these years of my life, I thought I was doing everyone else a favor by what was supposedly pouring into everybody else, prioritizing everyone else ahead of me, thinking that, that was love, or that was a great decision by helping others. And now actually we are pausing, right? Like you mentioned, for our kids, we're actually pausing, and it's, showing them that that's right. Life is theirs. And they can trust themselves to be making the decisions for them. And, there's beautiful moments where, they'll give up their ice cream and give it to their brother or sister or whatever that looks like. But it's still making them happy in the end. And that's the decision that they're making. And I think that that's such a great thing, is that there is that integration too, where life is yours, and ultimately whatever you choose, right? Like, it's yours to choose.
And I think it's now, thinking it of on a spectrum, right? Like, you don't want to be selfish, but you don't want to be selfless, right? You want to be and it fluctuates, right? Depending on, what your situation is, right? You want to maybe show a little bit more towards people, like you said, like sometimes our kids are like, I want to share this with them, but sometimes they don't. And we have to teach them that that's okay. Like to their other siblings, that's okay. They don't want to share that right now, but that could change, right? Like in this moment, they just want their own thing, and that's what they're choosing. And it has nothing to do with you, right? It has everything to do with them and their choice and their decision. And it goes into even the relationships we have as adults, right? Because these are the messages, Veronica, that I know we never got, because it just wasn't as prevalent, I don't think, for us growing up. And it's something that, we're learning as we're teaching it, right? Or showing it, let's say. We're still learning it. We're still trying to break those pathways or blaze new highways, like you like to say, right? In our own bodies, because it is not something that we grew up with. But it is something that we need, all of us need, because again, I'm going to go back to what you just said about how when you started to do it, it changed other people's lives. And I think it has a lot to do with the people that you hang around with, right? So because you're that person, or for that specific, like, you were that person in their group, let's say, and I'm sure there's multiple different people, like you said, that had told you this. So, when you were that one person that showed them the way, it then started to be that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that doesn't necessarily mean physical, like presence. It is also like conversational. It is also just like, sharing things. And so, yeah, when you show people that I can pour into myself, but that allows me to be there for you in other ways, it just opens up that opportunity for them to say, like, I want to do that too, right? And you all have shown clearly that you can be the catalyst for changing the average of what those people do.
I'm giving you space because I feel like you have so many wonderful things to say about this. And I feel like I poured my heart out about how life is yours.
No, I don't think, like, I think it's just, the message here is that when we all start to realize that life is yours, and the same goes for whoever is on the opposite end of your interaction or friend group or working relationship, right? We start to realize that people are making decisions for them, but they, in the end, are still having other people in mind, right? Like it is played into their decision, right? It's not a selfish act, right? We also don't want to be, like I just said, selfless. We don't always want to pour everything into everyone else, because then we have nothing left to give, right? And we've all heard that analogy along the way, but I think the message is clear. Don't make decisions for other people. Your life is yours. And when you start to move in that direction, you will start to see the fulfillment. You will start to see the happiness, right? And then, like you've shared, it blazes that path for other people to follow. And it just allows for so much more, room and space, and I think growth, happiness, all those great things that we're looking for in our lives.
Well, I saw a quote that was super impactful, I think just the other day. It said something it was so impactful, but I don't remember it word for word. But it said something along the lines of, like, you are going to speak to yourself the most. So, like, say those kind words, make your mind like a better place to be, in a sense. Like, you are going to be, ultimately, you are going to spend the most time with you. Like, you're going to be the one that's going to be there for you. And it's not to say, like, you don't support, or like, you don't surround yourself with those that support you, in a sense. Like, I mean, I think that we're very fortunate to have an amazing community around us, for sure. Amazing loved ones, amazing relationships. But it's just about, giving yourself permission to be able to pour into yourself as much or more than you've maybe spent so much time pouring into others.
Yeah, I agree. And if you can just start doing something small, like Veronica said, in the sense of one little thing, right? It may be a big feeling in the end to do it, but maybe it's one little action. And you start to see, again, we always talk about the progress, little progress here and there. That can build quickly, slowly, whatever it is for you, but just start with one little thing. As Veronica likes to say, just dip your toe in the water.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to jump in and cannonball. But if you start to do that and make your life yours, one small step at a time, I think that you will start to see what we've already seen and what we want to share and instill in our children and in others in our lives, and in you here listening to us. We want that for you too, if you already haven't done it, or we wanted to make it even more than what you're doing. So I think that, thank you, Veronica, for bringing this up, because, I know little pieces here and there have been part of our message, but we haven't actually, sat down and had a whole conversation on this, because I think it's very important, not only for us individually, Veronica, but as a family, and for our community, and for whoever is listening to this. We hope that you feel the same way. So thank you, everybody, for your support in this. Thank you for everybody's feedback. And Veronica, do you have your one last final thought?
Okay, it might be a longer thought. I'm laughing. I don't know if you can hear me. So, again, like we don't have like super fancy equipment or anything like that. And so sometimes when you're listening, if there's ever like echoes or like you can hear my laugh kind of go over some wording, or, when Neil is talking or otherwise, or vice versa. But one of the parting thoughts that I, that crept up in this conversation too is, when you had mentioned in another podcast, when you say no to something, you're making room for yes for something else. And by saying no to some things, and by saying more yes to yourself for some things, and again, it could be something really small, or like Neil mentioned, we always say that either dip your toe or kind of cannonball. Maybe try one thing and just take a cannonball on something one day. Do the cannonball and say yes to yourself for something. And maybe that's buying a new favorite sweater, or, maybe it is taking 5 minutes, or maybe it is saying no to something that doesn't serve you anymore. Whatever it is, life is yours, and take a step, or like dip more into the water into making it more yours, and have more fun.
I love it. Thank you so much for the message, Veronica. Thank you so much for joining us and picking this episode. And I hope the message resonated the way we wanted it to. And we can't thank you enough for all of your support. Whether you're liking, sharing, subscribing, whatever it is that you've done for this journey that we're on, we are grateful, and we can't wait to share more of our thoughts. So have a great day, everybody, and we look forward to talking with you again soon.